Good morning. All those people at the lake, don't feel good for them. It's going to rain later on this afternoon. I don't feel sorry for them. Can you hear me now? I'm on. It doesn't say mute, so it's not the loose screw behind the keyboard here. Can you hear me now? You got to give me some more. There we go. There we go. Gremlins. So I'll restate that. I don't feel sorry for the people at the lake. I don't feel jealous for them. It's going to rain on them. I don't feel sorry for them at all. That's me. No, I'm kidding. You're here at church, so you're more godly. It doesn't work that way, folks. It doesn't work that way. Exodus chapter 32. While you're turning there, I'm going to have a drink of water. Seriously, it is water. That tastes like coffee. Because I had coffee in there and I put water in. That's anyhow. Let us proceed to Exodus 32. Exodus 32. Did I say Genesis? Okay, Exodus 32. We're going to start in verse 15. Then Moses turned and went down from the mountain with 2 tablets of the testimony in his hand. The tablets were written on both sides. On the front and the back they were written. And the tablets were the work of God, and the writing was the writing of God, engraved on the tablets. And when Joshua heard the noise of the people as they shouted, he said to Moses, "There's the noise of war in the camp." But he, that would be Moses, said, "It is not the sound of shouting of victory, or the sound of the cry of defeat, but it is the sound of singing I hear." And as soon as he came near the camp, he saw the calf and the dancing, and Moses' anger burned hot, and he threw the tablets out of his hand and broke them at the foot of the mountain. He took the calf that they had made and burned it with fire and ground it into a powder and scattered it upon the water and made the people of Israel drink it. And Moses said to Aaron, "What is this? What did this people do to you, that you have brought such a great sin upon them?" And Aaron said, "Let not the anger of my Lord burn hot. You know the people, and that they are set on evil. For they said to me, 'Make us the gods who will go before us.' And as for this Moses, the man who brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we do not know what has become of him. So I said to them, 'Let any of you that have gold take it off.' And so they gave it to me, and I threw it in the fire, and I'll pot this calf." Great line, right? Great line. We'll get to that in a minute. Previously in I need the theme music for 24. Just it may go over so well. Anyhow, previously we talked about the golden calf 2 weeks ago. And in the language of the text, and you see it here, if you have an English translation that says take off, it's translated improperly. It's tear out. You go back and read the account. Aaron comes up with an idea to where the children of Israel may balk at giving them the gold. He says, "Well, rip those earrings out of your ears and give me the gold." Hoping the people go, "Oh, I might rip them out of my ear, but I'm not going to the wife and go, 'Hey, baby, oh, look, there's a unicorn.'" Not happening, not even at gunpoint. But the text says they did just that. They ripped the earrings from their ears, from their daughter's ears, from their son's ears, and from their spouse's ears, and then brought that bloody mess of gold to Aaron, and he makes a gold calf for the sole purpose of it being a god and going before them. And so now it's a God that saves them. It's the God that delivers them. Not the one true God. Not the one true God that delivered them from Israel or from Egypt, delivered them and gave them Moses to lead them out. It's the God that will deliver us, and they bow before it. Do more than just bow before it. They go into what we would describe as a drunken orgy before it. And last week we looked at God's response. And a lot of times God's response is characterized as ungodly. We're mostly going, "Hey God, remember your temper, your blood pressure. You don't want to blow gasket." And that's not the case at all. God's wrath in that situation was right and just. Why? Because we're going to see Moses' response when he sees what they do. And so God's wrath was a just and right response. But out of his great mercy and grace, he relented from destroying them, though he should have. And today we pick up where Moses is coming down. And notice the language that the text says. He has 2 tablets. When the law is written front and back, when you see the picture of the 10 Commandments and all 10 of them are on the front, no, wrong. They're on the front and back. And they are written with the finger of God. And they have them in his hands. And when he comes down, he meets Joshua and says, there is a war in the camp, because there's a commotion. The Hebrew has a beautiful wordplay that just does not come over in English at all. And they do their best with, well, there's the sound of victory, and there's also the sound of defeat. And Moses goes, no. Well, Moses already had the read ahead. He knows that the people have sinned against God. It's not the sound of the victorious cheering over vanquished people and the cry of lament of defeated people. It is the rejoiceful sound of rebellious people against a holy God. And Moses hears this joyous sound of people as they prostitute themselves before a vile corruption of God's presence. They lay down before a thing of God's presence. They pervert things before God's presence. And they revel in the perversion. And that's what Moses hears. And that's what is going on. And as they draw near, these tablets, which are written with the very finger of God, Moses now sees the totality of the immorality that God has warned him about, and he takes the very tablets and he throws them down the mountain, and he breaks them. A physical representation of exactly what physically has just occurred. He breaks the commands of God, demonstrating the people's already breaking of the commands of God. The people violate God's commands. They are down there they break 4 commandments right off the bat. They violate their oath right off the bat. And to symbolize, to show that, he throws those out in his anger and his rage at what he sees. First of all, folks, one of the things you pull away from this is for us believers, sin ought to invoke for us the same kind of righteous wrath that it invokes in God, not our placidness to it, not our willingness to coexist with it, not our willingness to go along, to get along, not our willingness to go, well, you know, it doesn't really matter. You can believe what you want to believe. I want to believe what I want to believe. We'll all live happy. No. When there is sin in the camp, especially within the houses, it should invoke a righteous wrath. Not an unrighteous wrath, but a righteous wrath. The fact that we would create an idol, bow down before it, should so make us incensed because of the affront, not to us, but the affront to a holy God. And the fact is, we have a lot of churches, instead of holding up a standard of righteousness, that invite more and more perversion within the church, to where the church and many of them do not look any different than the world in which they live in. Because good people allow sinful things to go on within the church. And it's fostered by well-intentioned leaders, that we'll see in a minute, who allow it. Because they don't want to upset people's feelings. They don't want to make people mad. They don't want people's feelings or feathers to get ruffled. Folks, if you're coming here to church to where your feathers never get ruffled, go to the guy in Houston. He's never going to ruffle your feathers. And you can believe whatever you want, and he's never going to challenge your position. He's never going to tell you you're wrong. That's not the job of the minister, and that's not the job of the church. If you don't want that, the guy in Houston, or there's a few churches here in town that have the same kind of message, go there. But understand, you're falling for an idol. Moses goes, he sees the idol, he takes the idol, and now this is a God, right? Let's remember the conversation. Make us a God that will go before us and deliver us from all the nations. So it's a God. Let me show you the power of this great God that they built. Let me show you and demonstrate for you the power this God had. Because it's fierce. Ready? Let me show you the power this fierce and powerful God that you have made is. So Moses, took the calf and made, the calf that they had made, and he burned it with fire. He then ground it to a powder, and then he scattered it upon the water and made the people drink it. Did you catch his power? Did you catch the strength of the God? Now, remember a couple weeks ago when we were talking about this, it's amazing how we can find time, talent, and tithe for our God, little g. Man, we've got all kinds of time for our God. Hence the low attendance for this week, because people are celebrating their God. We have all kinds of time for our little g God. We have all kinds of talent for our little g God. And we have all kinds of tithe for our little g God. And nothing for the God that exists. And nothing for the God that delivers. And nothing for the God that provides. But we have all the time, talent, and tithe for a God that can be taken, tossed in a fire, burned into ashes, and turned into a scrumptious drink for you to ingest. We have all kinds of time for that God. Now look at the power the God had. Think about it. Go forward in time to the book of 1 Samuel when the children of Israel take God in a box out to the battlefield going, well, we'll take the Ark of the Covenant out and he'll kill the Philistines and we'll be victorious. And they lose the Ark in battle. And the Philistines take the Ark and they put it in the temple of Dagon. And the next morning, Dagon is on the ground before the true ark. So you can't have that. So they pick him up and put him back in his place. The next day they come in and it's like a Russian mob hit. His head is severed and so is his hands. And he's on the ground. So then, because the affliction sent upon that city, they send the ark to another city. And the affliction goes there. See, that's the power of a real God. A real God can back up his being desecrated with real power. That God got tossed into a fire, was beaten into a lump, had stones that took it and ground it into a very fine powder, was put into a drink, I don't know, golden water, maybe it looked like the old school Gatorade, I don't know. I'm not drinking it unless, of course, I'm being made to. Gives new terms to heavy metal. Where's Eric? Sorry. That's their God. It can't deliver itself. Reminds me of the language out of Isaiah. A man will go into the woods. He will cut down a tree. With a third of it, he heats his house. With a third of it, he makes his food. And with a third of it, he carves into an idol. And he bows down and says, "You are my God." And Isaiah is pointing out the absolute insanity of that statement. He describes another event that you will get a God and you will adorn it with silver. And if you're too poor for that, you'll find a guy who will carve you one to where it doesn't teeter back and forth, because you can't have a God that, like, you know, the chairs you get in the store or in classrooms where your chair does that. Your God can't do that. But He can't save. And yet we put our time and our talent and our tithe into these little g gods. And we put our effort there. And we put our focus there. And there's not a moment of time when those gods can save you. Well, I've got a lot of money. So did people in the 20s. Many of them took nosedives out of buildings after they lost it all, did they not? Well, I'm a pretty smart guy. They can be taken from you too. There's a movie I really like to watch. It's called The Count of Monte Cristo. It's based upon the Alexander Dumas's book. It's not going to follow the book, so if you've read the book and you watch the movie, you'll be sorely disappointed. But that's kind of the same with every movie coming from books, and so you either just have to embrace that or don't watch movies. Or don't read books. So, I prefer you not to pick the latter, but if you must, you must. And in the conversation, there is a priest that has been locked up in the prison with the main character, Edmond Dantes. And he said, and the priest says, I will give you something that no man can take away from you. And he says, my freedom? Wealth? He says, oh no, you have seen that those can be taken from you. I will give you knowledge. And the problem with knowledge is that can be taken from you too. Those of us that as you get older have seen the ravages of time upon those that continue to live that are older amongst us, as time ravages their memory. Or those who have been at work in a freak accident and have taken a blow to the head and they have lost what they know. Caroline had a best friend in Italy. She went to the beach. She got a disease the next day. All that was about her ceased to be. And she was just a form. See, there is nothing about your little g gods that you possess, that you bow down and that you worship, that can deliver you. Your money can come from you. Your wealth can come from you. Your education can come from you. Your free time can come from you. Your on and on and on. Why? Because that God can't save you. It cannot deliver you. It couldn't deliver itself from Moses' hand. God didn't even strike this thing. Let's get to this drink as I take a drink. This drink, he takes the gold, he grinds it into a fine powder, puts it in water and makes it drink it. The follow-on to this would be Numbers chapter 5, verse 11. In Numbers chapter 5, verse 11, is the formula for when a woman is caught being unfaithful to her husband and is now pregnant with a child, and the husband is laid an accusation that she had an affair. And in that, the priest was to scrape dust from the area around the altar, put it into water, give it to the woman to drink. And if she was unfaithful, God, through this liquid, would cause the woman to miscarriage, and then she would be punished. If she was unfaithful, no harm would come to her or the child. In that same thing, this same liquid is demonstration of the unfaithful characteristic of Israel with God. This is not the only time where God will use the marriage relationship with the faithfulness of God in Israel. He does the same thing in the prophets. Go take for yourself a wife who is a harlot. You know the passage I'm talking of? And so you have here God, through this concoction with Moses, demonstrating the people's covenantal unfaithfulness to their God, and from that they will all get sick. But see, little gods come from the encouragement of weak leaders. Weak leaders encourage little gods because weak leaders do not hold a standard. And weak leaders will let the people do what they want in the name of unity, in the name of keeping their job, in the name of, I don't want to make folks mad. That's the sign of a weak leader. A weak leader helps folks develop little gods. And we will see the classic example of a weak leader. Moses went to Aaron. What did this people do to you that you have brought a great sin upon them? What did they do, Aaron? Did they put a knife to your throat? I can understand that. You know, make us a gold calf or we're going to wipe out your whole family here. I can understand that. Self-preservation. Aaron, do this or we're going to start chopping off your appendages, starting with your toes. Nope. Nope. And look what Aaron does. This is the example of a weak leader. A weak leader makes excuses for his behavior. What does he do? You know these people. These people are bad. They're horrible people. You've seen them. First excuse. Oh, don't be angry at me. You know the people. They're set on evil. Well, I did this to placate them because if I stood up against them, they get mad at me. Well, folks, I'm going to tell you, when you take a stand, be prepared to stand alone. Do not be prepared to turn around and find people supporting you because they will not be there. Most folks don't like taking stands. That's why our nation is in the shape that it's in. That's why you see churches that embrace all types of immorality because their leaders do not take a stand. Weak leaders placate. They go to soothe ruffled feathers because, well, we can't have people with ruffled feathers to contemplate why their feathers are ruffled. Sometimes your feathers are ruffled, not because someone's done to you, but because you're being convicted of things that you are not doing. And you get your nose in a bunch. And then a weak leader comes and placates you and smooths your feathers. It's not that bad. See, Aaron is not angry that the calf is made. Aaron wasn't angry at the thought of the calf being made. Aaron wasn't angry at the fact that after he told the people to rip the earrings from their ears, and they did it, that the people ripped the earrings from their ears to make a golden calf. Aaron is a weak leader. And what he did was allow the people to follow after a false god. And then he blames the people for their wickedness. Of course people are wicked. Of course sheep want to go where sheep want to go. They're sheep. The shepherd's job is to direct them where they need to go. See the difference? I watched the guys in Iraq and in Italy. They did not let the sheep did not tell the shepherd where he was to go. The shepherd told the sheep where they were going to go. And he used dogs to help them get them there. He wasn't mean or wasn't abusive. He just directed them where they needed to go. A weak leader just, go on. You know how bad these people are, Moses. I went along to get along. And what did they create? They created a little god. For they said to me, make us a god that shall go before us. As for this Moses, the man that brought us up out of Egypt, who brought them out of Egypt? Was it really Moses? Or was Moses the agent that brought them out? It was actually God that brought them out through the work of Moses. As this man Moses brought us up out of Egypt, we don't know what's become of him. We've lost sight of our leader. He's been gone for about 40 days. Clearly God's killed him. So instead of following God, let's just make a new God. You weren't here, Moses. And since you weren't here, I had me back up. Since I had me back up, well, golly gee, these people are mean. Golly gee, grow a spine. If it's wrong, it's wrong. If I believe it's wrong, it's wrong. Grow a spine. And be the leader God has called you to be. Pastors, be a leader God's called you to be. Leaders within the church, be the leader God's called you to be. Don't placate the people when they complain. Point them in the direction that they need to be going. Grow a spine. So they gave me, so I said, let any of you with the gold take it off. No, actually it's rip out, tear out. Tear it off. And so they gave me the gold. So they ripped it out of their hands. So that was their commitment to this God. So they were pretty committed, Moses, to have this God. I mean, they ripped it out of their ears. And then, this is the strangest thing ever. Like really wicked weird. I threw the gold into the fire, and out popped this gold calf. Shazam! There it is. I didn't make it. I threw the gold in the fire. The gold went in, and poof, out came this gold calf. Had nothing to do with it. The calf made itself. That's kind of what he's saying. Does it seem like Aaron is like 5? I mean, Aaron sounds like he's 5. I mean, that's an excuse I expect to get from my 10 and under. What? I don't know how it happened, but poof. There it was. Miracle. The calf made itself. I threw the gold in the fire and boop, out it comes. Well, let's just say that that's the course. If the calf has the ability to generate itself, certainly has the ability to protect itself, does it not? But Moses grabs it, tosses it into the fire. And I'm sure the people were enraged that he had done so. There are things here that we, or some of us, treat as little gods. We get caught up in the trappings of the building. The stained glass, the wood pulpit, the wooden communion box. And, there are some folks that if it was gone next Sunday, would be more incensed that that is gone than they are that their next door neighbor is dying and going to hell. Which one of those is your God? If you'd be incensed about that, but are perfectly okay with churches embracing all kinds of perversion, which one is your God? So we get focused in on the niceties. And look, there's nothing wrong with a nice pulpit. I love me a good pulpit. I love some nice stained glass window. I've been to Europe and seen it beautifully done. And it's just amazingly gorgeous. And it can bring glory to God. But it's things. And sometimes we get so enamored with the thing that we forget what the thing's purposes are for. And we get angry that the thing is gone as opposed to fulfilling the purpose of what the thing is for. If I were to take your God away from you today and you were incensed in anger, but not that your neighbor next to you or the person at the counter or today when you go to lunch, that the person you deal with is dying and going to hell, then the thing is your God. Because if it bothers you not that they go to hell, then it shouldn't bother you at all that that gets burned in a pile. Not that that would happen. See, what happens is we get so enthralled upon the things that we use them for the sake of worship that soon they transition to being the thing worshipped itself. There are churches in this area that are so weak-led that people come to church and they go, well, I know that you believe that, but we will just have to choose to agree to disagree. On core matters of faith, folks, I will not choose to disagree with you. You will find me a very worthy adversary because I won't yield. Because the Bible requires the shepherd to be unyielding in those positions. Aaron yields. Aaron allows the people to have what they want gives the people what they want. And the people create for themselves a fake God and violate the covenant. There are ministers that do that. And they embrace the homosexual argument. I have a Facebook acquaintance. He's a former chaplain friend of mine. He is pro-homosexuality, minister, pro-abortion, pro anything that you can figure out is as far ugly as you can get, and claims the name of Christ. His congregation has an organist that's an open homosexual and is married to his life partner. He is an Aaron. He gives the people what they want, which is a false god. And he does not hold up a righteous standard. And he will be judged for it. You also have an obligation. You have an obligation that when you see that going in that direction, that you must also take a stand and say, I will not let this happen. There is a standard. There is a God. This isn't God. And I will not rip the gold from my ears. I will have time, talent, and tithe for my God, the one true God, not a false God. That's your requirement. It's a moment for you to reflect. You will have tomorrow. Most businesses are closed. You'll have today. What's your God? Have you been led there by easy and well-meaning leaders that have allowed you to move in that direction? The God you serve cannot save you. The God you serve cannot deliver you. The God you serve can't even deliver himself. But the one true God, the one who saves, the one who delivers, the one who all glory, honor, what's the name of the hymn that you keep singing every morning so far?
All glory, God.
Oh, that God. That God, right? Yeah. That one deserves all glory, laud, and honor. Time, talent, tithe. I want you to look around and see all the folks that are honoring their time and talent and tithe somewhere else. You're here today, and you have a God in your life. And that God gets everything of your time, your talent, and your tithe. That God will not save you. That God cannot deliver you. That God has no ability to grant you salvation. The one true God of Israel does. As the praise band comes and sings, I want you to contemplate your existence with that false God. And encourage you to begin to make a step to tear down that idol. And embrace the one true God with your time, your talent, and your tithe.